And Trump is, for all his talk, for all his hype, he has done absolutely nothing to address that. So according to the EPI, the 2017 CEO to worker compensation ratio of 312 to 1 was far greater than the 20 to 1 ratio in 1965. Wow. 312 to 1. That is crazy. 312 to 1 CEO to worker compensation ratio right there. And more than 5 times greater than the 58 to 1 ratio in 1989, though it was lower than the peak ratio of 344 to 1 reached in 2000. What happened 8 years later? The gap between the compensation of CEOs and other very high wage earners is also substantial, with CEOs in large firms earning 5.5 times as much as the average earner in the top 0.1%. In other words, you're getting robbed, please smugged. As the Washington Post healthy notes, this is a choice. But others say the wide gap is a reflection of the U.S. laws that unjustly privilege managers over workers. In many countries in Europe, the salary gap between the CEOs and their employees is less than half of what it is in the United States. CEO to worker pay ratio in the UK is 94 to 1, 91 to 1 in France, 71 to 1 in the Netherlands, and 40 to 1 in Sweden. According to a report by the Executive Remuneration Research Center and Valeric Business School in Belgium, they have stronger labor unions over there, which makes a difference. Steve Micheal, an economic professor at Cornell University, said, "Don't get robbed. Get unions." That's pretty much the deal. So yeah, also when you have a socialist governing, they're going to jump up and down about these things, and obviously we don't have that. If there only was a solution to this whole entire situation. What's the word? Organize. Unions. Do more organization. Unions. Band together. You are the people. We're the people. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said it. They have the money. We have the popular support, and that's what we got to use. We got to use the popular support as a weapon so workers out there are not getting screwed daily. Because it's just, again, it's a ridiculous situation. It's getting to a point where, wow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the moment that you have all been waiting for. We devoted a show to this, really. But what we're going to do is get right to it, and you know what it is. You're gonna hear the music. Let's do it. Yes, election night was Tuesday, and 4 more states held primary elections on Tuesday night, including the 2016 swing states of Wisconsin and Minnesota. If you were a Republican or someone who likes busting unions, you had a terrible night. If you were a progressive, you had an amazing one with Ilhan Omar, the Christine Hallquist, gubernatorial candidate leftist from Vermont, winning the Democratic Party nomination, and progressive Randy Bryce in Wisconsin. Very good. Good stuff. All right. We're going to review everything that took place for Republicans and Democrats in this whole situation. All right. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us here today. This is our election night recap. All right. So there it is for you. All right, so yeah, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Vermont, Connecticut, they all had primaries. In Wisconsin, Democrats are looking to topple two-term Republican governor and former presidential candidate Scott Walker, despite his status as a conservative darling. Thanks to his hard work making life worse for public sector workers, it appears that it has not endeared him to Wisconsin voters. In July morning consult poll, Walker was still the 9th least popular governor in the country. Still, Republicans did renominate Walker on Tuesday with 92% of the vote over a more moderate challenger. On the Democratic side, state school superintendent Tony Evers comfortably run his race in a 10-person field. But what's going to scare Walker is that even though he's already been shook, is the Democratic voters' enthusiasm. Over 81,000 more people cast votes in the Democratic primary than the Republican one, which is an insane margin. In Minnesota, Republicans have had even bigger problems. Democrats cast over 270,000 more votes in the state's gubernatorial primary than Republicans did, which shows, again, a sign of enthusiasm, a sign of turnout. for November. That's why that's so significant. And they nominated Tim Walz, Democratic congressman, to be their nominee. Union Boston Attorney General Lori Swanson, whom the NUSF reported last week had relied on government staff to do campaign work, finished a distant third despite being considered the front runner. That's very good. And Lori Swanson, I think, was she going to be on the Democratic side? That's a good thing she did not win. That's very disturbing. She finished distant third despite being considered the front runner. And on the Republican side, a comparatively low turnout produced a surprise. Gubernatorial nominee Jeff Johnson defeated former two-term governor Tim Pawlenty. In July, NBC News released a poll showing Pawlenty with a 15-point lead over Johnson. So that's a little weird. Vermont voters also went to the polls Tuesday. The state's governor, Republican Phil Scott, won his first two-year term in 2016, is currently projected to roll to re-election. But on Tuesday, he faced a surprisingly strong challenge from political neophyte Keith Stern, and Republicans were livid after Scott signed a package of gun control bills back in April. He ultimately won 68% of the vote, with his approval rating in one of the most liberal states in the country has recently plummeted. And Democratic opponent in November, Christine Hallquist, outpolled him by over 3,000 votes despite facing a larger field of primary candidates, which is pretty incredible. If Hallquist is elected, she'll be the first openly transgender governor in U.S. history. So that'll be very cool. Good for diversity. Good to get new voices. Good new perspectives in there. And she's also a pretty big leftist. She supports the Bernie Sanders position. She's a Justice Dem, which is very good. And it's far more important, frankly, to me, than her being transgender. So while much of the focus in November is understandably on Congress and particularly on the House of Representatives, Tuesday's results indicate the Democrats could do something that's arguably even more important than winning back Congress. With a new census coming in 2020 and a new round of fights over redistricting and gerrymandering on deck, a Democratic wave could help start to win back some of the enormous ground in the party lost in states during the Obama years. Here's what else happened on Tuesday night that was notable. Democratic Congressman and DNC Deputy Chair Keith Ellison, who was accused of domestic violence by the son of his former partner, Sierra Club organizer Karen Monahan, over the weekend, easily won a 5-person Democratic primary for Attorney General and will take on Republican Doug Wardlow in November. Minnesota has not elected a Republican Attorney General since 1966. Ellison has denied those allegations. Ellison vacated his solidly Democratic 5th congressional seat in order to run for Attorney General. On Tuesday, State Representative Ilhan Omar, big progressive socialist, by the way, round of applause for our DSA member, won the primary to replace him with 48% of the vote. She's virtually guaranteed to be the first Somali American in Congress, along with Michigan Democrat Rashida Tlaib, set to become one of the first 2 Muslim women elected in congressional history. They're both going in together. It's going to be pretty cool. Tlaib posted a picture of the two on Twitter to celebrate. Get ready, at Ilhan MN and I are coming to Washington. #sisterhood, she says. Canadian's 5th district, where Elizabeth Etsy is retiring after admitting she mishandled abuse allegations against a male staffer. Former National Teacher of the Year Johanna Hayes won in a landslide against former statewide candidate Mary Glassman. As the Intercept reported, Glassman had the backing of strange bedfellows. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, MoveOn.org, and the Connecticut Democratic Party, and a local chapter of Our Revolution. Hayes will face Republican Mandy Santos in November. If she wins, she'll be the first black woman elected to Congress from any New England state, which is pretty strange. In Wisconsin 1st District, which is being vacated by House Speaker and sniveling coward, probably the most spineless man in American politics, Paul Ryan, endorsed by, which is being vacated. So in that seat, Wisconsin won, 1st Congressional District there. Paul Ryan's vacating it, and Justice Democrats endorsed iron worker Randy Bryce, known as Iron Stash, easily won his primary over Kathy Myers, a candidate who didn't really disagree on him on anything of substance. He'll face former Ryan aide Brian Steele in November. Neo-Nazi Paul Nealon finished a distant 3rd in the Republican primary, though he still got a disturbing 11% of the vote. in Connecticut's Democratic primary, finally, Ned Lamont, if you remember that name, he was notable. He's a cable television entrepreneur whose anger over U.S. Democratic Senator Joe Lieberman's support of the Bush administration's policies spurred him to explore whether to mount a primary challenge on the most prominent Democratic supporter of the war in Iraq. He's done exploring. Lamont's running, and he got a message from the globe-trotting incumbent who returned from his most recent trip to Iraq with a ringing endorsement of the occupation. Senator the challenger said, "Stop by Bridgeport on the way back from Baghdad, listen to constituents." That's what he said then. He won the Democratic primary. Joe Lieberman then promptly ran as an independent and beat him. So yeah, he's the Joe Lieberman guy, and he's running for governor. He's going to face, by the way, he beat out former Bridgeport mayor and convicted felon Jogan Nim right here in the state where we're broadcasting from today. He'll face Republican businessman Bob Stefanowski, who won a 5-person primary, which is 29% of the vote. By the way, heavily big dark money funded. Packed and everything. So he won a 5-person primary with just 29% of the vote. Current Democratic Governor Daniel Malloy is one of the most unpopular in the country, and given Republican gubernatorial candidates' recent success in solid blue states, as the GOP views it as a rare pickup opportunity last year, and someone a very special man, Richard Painter. Richard Painter, he lost badly, so hopefully we'll never hear from him again. It's Richard Painter. He's the Bush ethics lawyer who thought he could try to run in Minnesota for a Democratic seat, which is pretty funny because he sucks. All right, so we are going to move on. Excuse me. So I keep hitting my microphone. I'm so sorry. We're going to move on to the DNC, and as a climate change-fueled wildfire rages right now on the West Coast, the DNC voted 30-2 on Friday in support of a proposal to welcome the long-standing and generous contribution of workers, including those in energy-related industries, who organized and donated to Democratic candidates eventually, or through their unions or employers' political action committees. The move seemingly reversed a ban in June, pledging that the body would stop taking contributions from corporate PACs connected to the fossil fuel industry. So that's very great. So I mean, obviously they really did change that up a little bit, which is a perfect time, by the way, to change it up and start taking more PAC money from fossil fuel industry. That's just some great stuff there. But DNC spokesperson Chilhin Josa said this. I don't know how to say that name. It's XO Hinojosa. Said that the decision, it's a very fun name to say if you put some flair into it, Shokdil Hinjosa. I'm actually, you know what? Here's how I think you say it. Yeah, so apparently it's, I'm going to be honest here, I just looked this up here on a thing, which is like a pronunciation site, and this is it. Hinojosa. Miss Hinojosa, I can't say it, I'm so sorry. It said the decision was made after, quote, hearing concerns from labor that this was an attack on workers. This resolution acknowledges the generous contributions of workers, including those in energy who organize and donate to Democratic candidates. She told the Huffington Post the change did not represent a reversal of the previous policy and did not comment on which unions in particular had approached the DNC about a possible rule change. Chuck Idelson, a spokesperson for National Nurses United, a union that has been outspoken on the need to confront climate change and also backed Bernie Sanders' presidential bid, called the proposal a blatant appeal to contributions from the fossil fuel industry, and the proposal was apparently gorged with profits that they make off destroying the planet and poisoning working people. So it seems pretty fair to me. But the language of the proposal, though, by DNC Chair Tom Perez, I'm for good things. This is pretty much Tom, and Kyle Kolinsky. He's a host. He's a progressive host on YouTube, I believe. Yeah. He had some pretty interesting things. He's like this. He pretty much did this for Tom Perez, quote unquote, impersonation, which I thought was perfect and just nailed the whole idea. He was like, I'm for good things and against bad things. That's me. I'm Tom Perez. vote for the DNC. We begin with hope, and we begin with change. We're going to put hope on the ballot, which is incredibly accurate. I think he said that about 3 trillion times, Tom Perez has. So language of the proposal,